Okay. Yesterday, we discussed the concept of sustainable development, and we discussed that in 2002 in World Summit on Sustainable Development, the agenda for sustainable development was adopted. Agenda for sustainable development was adopted by all the countries unanimously, and later on a resolution was also passed by United Nations General Assembly regarding the adoption of sustainable development by all the members of the UN, and therefore it has become a universal concept today. And yesterday I also mentioned that it has two facets, two aspects of this. Two aspects of this are important. We discuss this. One is obviously the inclusive growth. Inclusive growth. The sustainable development is possible when there is inclusive growth in the economy. And second is that growth has to be the compatibility with the environment. Environment compatibility. Environment compatibility is inevitable. Environment compatibility. These two aspects are important as far as the sustainable development is concerned. If you really want to be on the sustainable development agenda, every country, including India, we have to focus on inclusive growth, and we have to make the growth compatible with the environment. Is clear? And yesterday we ended at this point. Today I'll elaborate slightly more about inclusive growth. What is inclusive growth and how we have implemented various schemes and programs in India to attain the inclusive growth. Inclusive growth is the growth process in which we expect poverty, hunger to reduce, or to inequality to be reduced, social welfare to increase, social welfare of everyone to increase. That is the idea of inclusive growth. That is the idea of inclusive growth. After this agenda was adopted in 2002, the United Nations adopted these 8 Millennium Development Goals. In 2002, MDGs were adopted by the UN. UN General Assembly adopted the Millennium Development Goals. And these goals were 8 in number. ये आपको सारे याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है, पर आपको इतना याद रखना पड़ेगा कि to ensure that every country is on the agenda of sustainable development, United Nations adopted these 7 Millennium Development Goals. In these 7 Millennium Development Goals, the 7 were focusing on inclusive growth. 7 were focused on inclusive growth. For example, reduction of poverty and hunger, one of the goals. Access to education, health facilities, second goal. Ensuring access to drinking water to everyone, third goal. So therefore, the goals are defined, and every country war to achieve all these goals. Target was set in 2002. Target was set for achieving these goals. Only one was for environment. One was for environment compatibility. It means that out of 8, 7 goals were focusing on inclusive growth. That was in 2002. And these goals were set, MDGs were set up to 2015. All the countries were to achieve these goals by 2015, in 2015. But by the time we reached 2015, most of the countries sought more time to achieve these goals because they could not achieve these goals by that particular time limit. As a result, in 2015, a new meeting was held. जैसे मैंने बताया था आपको कि 1992 में it was decided that all meeting will take place within the framework of UNFCCC. याद है कल मैंने बताया था आपको यूनाइटेड नेशंस फ्रेमवर्क कन्वेंशन ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज, इस फ्रेमवर्क में मीटिंग होगी. Therefore, in 2015, the meeting was organized under this framework, where the focus was the climate change. In 2015, the COP was held. COP means Conference of Parties. It was held in 2015, and focus was climate change. But in the meantime, on the sideline of the conference, the discussion was also on the inclusive growth. Inclusive growth. And the committee or this conference realized that most of the countries could not achieve the MDGs which were set in 2002. And therefore, in this meeting, the MDGs are replaced by SDGs. MDGs replaced by SDGs, replaced by Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Paris. बता रहा हूँ MDGs 8 से, or they were to be achieved by all the countries. Since most of the countries, including India, could not achieve these goals, and they wanted the more time for achievement, in this conference, which was held in Paris on climate change, they revised the goals. And the goals which they revised is now called Sustainable Development Goals. And MDGs were 8 in number. They are 17 in number. 17 SDGs were defined. अब आपको 17 कहीं पढ़े आपने लिस्ट देखी है? Have you seen the list of 17 SDGs? नहीं है तो मैं आपको एक PPT में दे दूंगा सारी लिस्ट, अगर नहीं है तो, और अगर है आपके पास तो कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है, ठीक है. 17 SDGs. So now these 17 SDGs were adopted in conference, and time frame was 2015 to 2030. 2030. And out of these 17, 12 SDGs were focusing on inclusive growth. And 5 were focusing on environment compatibility. And therefore, my only point of highlighting this fact is that in the sustainable development, the focus was on inclusive growth. No matter when you consider MDGs or SDGs, the focus was on inclusive growth. Majority of the goals were focused for attaining the inclusive growth. Why? Because it was realized in 1992 as well as in 2015 meeting that without attaining the inclusive growth, it is not possible to attain the sustainable development. It is not possible, and therefore the focus is on inclusive growth. That's why UPSC wants you to understand the nuances of the inclusive growth. लिखा ना एक line in inclusive growth and issues emerging from it. Why it is important? Because the sustainable development agenda is possible only when the country is on the path of the inclusive growth. Therefore, Today I'm discussing very briefly what is inclusive growth and how we are trying to achieve this inclusive growth and various components of inclusive growth we shall be trying to achieve, and I'll pick up each component separately as a chapter. For example, reduction in poverty and hunger is the first condition of inclusive growth. And this is the first SDG also. SDG number 1 is the reduction in hunger. Or they said that by 2030, the hunger should be reduced to 0. Nobody in the world should face the problem of hunger. And the poverty to be reduced by 1/3 by 2030. This is the second goal. Therefore, 17 goals are listed which every country is to achieve by 2030. That's why this inclusive growth concept is important. But question is, how do we define the inclusive growth? What are the various components of the inclusive growth? And how India is attaining the path of the inclusive growth? This is the important point we are discussing today. Various components of inclusive growth I will be discussing separately also when we move to the different chapters. Then you will see the details of the inclusive growth. So therefore, inclusive growth is focused in the agenda for sustainable development. And that's why the inclusive growth is important for civil service, both for prelim as well as mains. Last year भी direct question था इसके ऊपर, inclusive growth, mains में. So therefore, the concept of inclusive growth to be understood in detail, और जो भी problem आपको आए, you can ask. अभी मैंने highlight किया है कि this important. This concept is important for all the countries, and more important for the country like India, where there is a huge population and resources are limited. And here the economics comes in. How with the limited resources, government is trying to attain the inclusive growth in the country. Anji? Mike? यार ये लगा के तो गया ठीक. हेलो हेलो आ रही है आवाज? हेलो तो वैसे भी आ जाएगी बिना माइक के भी यहाँ तो. हेलो हाँ चलो कोई बात नहीं, आ जाएगी तो जी. हाँ जी SDGs क्या क्वेश्चन है आपका सारा? नहीं, अभी तक हम कोई भी SDG पूरी तरह से पूरा नहीं कर पाए. SDGs are important. They are monitored at the international level. The United Nations Statistical Commission is monitoring the performance of SDGs for all the countries. ये भी आपको जानना पड़ेगा क्योंकि ये प्रीलिम में क्वेश्चन आ गया था लास्ट टाइम. SDGs are monitored at international level by United Nations Statistical Commission. And in India, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation is the nodal ministry which is monitoring the performance of all these 17 SDGs. And the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation is submitting the quarterly report to United Nations Statistical Commission. And the UNSC is publishing consolidated report for all the countries. All the countries. This is the institutional framework created for monitoring of the sustainable development goals. ये आपका क्वेश्चन है. अब क्वेश्चन है कि whether we have achieved any of these goals or not. So my answer is no. We have not achieved any of the SDGs so far. But we are in the process. The time is up to 2030. We are in the process of achieving these goals. That's why I said that when we move ahead in different chapters, I'll mention about which SDG is important for this chapter. And you see what is the SDG goal and where are we. I'll highlight in this particular chapter. Clear? अब 17 goals को यहाँ मैं theoretical discussion वो point नहीं है. You will not be able to understand. Everybody has a list of SDGs. जिसके पास नहीं है वो मेरे से ले सकता है. PPT में मैं डाली हुई है सारी SDGs की list. You can read that. But each SDG I will consider when we reach to a particular chapter. If I read the chapter of poverty and hunger, I will highlight which goal is important. If I ask you or if you discuss the education facilities or health facilities, which goal is important? So that I will mention as we reach a particular chapter. Clear? But here in introduction, my only point is that the inclusive growth is important. Because out of 17, 12 SDGs are focusing on attaining the inclusive growth by each country. And we adopted, as I mentioned, the Sustainable Development Agenda in 2002. In 2002, our 10th 5-year plan was under formulation. And therefore, in the 10th 5-year plan, we started highlighting the indicators which are to be monitored to attain the inclusive growth. But we did not add any chapter on inclusive growth. In 11th 5-year plan and the 12th 5-year plan, these are the two 5-year plans where the separate chapter is added on inclusive growth. In the 11th plan, the slogan was inclusive and faster growth. If you read the title page of the 11th 5-year plan or 12th 5-year plan, you will see title is inclusive and faster growth is the goal of the country. So therefore, the focus on the inclusive growth started coming from 11th plan covers. Of course, after 12th plan, there is no further 5-year plan. But government is publishing the mid-term, short-term or long-term plans. In the long-term plans also, in the mid-term plan also, we have a chapter on the inclusive growth. ये तो आपको पता ही होगा कि 12th plan के बाद no further 5-year plans are made by the government. Planning Commission was abolished and Planning Commission is replaced by Niti Aayog. And Niti Aayog is different from the Planning Commission because no financial power is given to the Niti Aayog. And the Niti Aayog is only a technical advisory institution of the government. In the erstwhile Planning Commission, the lot of funds were routed to state government through Planning Commission. Therefore, Planning Commission assumes significant role in the process of development. But when the Planning Commission is replaced by Niti Aayog is only a technical body. They only advise the government on technical issues, on economic issues. No financial power is given to Niti Aayog. No financial allocation is done through Niti Aayog. While in the case of Planning Commission, a lot of money was flowing to the states through Planning Commission. Now, planning पे एक chapter I'll take up planning also. So in that chapter I'll discuss with you what was the situation earlier and what is the situation now as far as the flow of funds is concerned. Okay. Coming back to this inclusive growth. So inclusive growth is, if you want to see the inclusive growth of any country, you have to see three features of inclusive growth. Oh, this is the inclusive growth. Inclusive growth. Whether the country is on the inclusive growth or not. What we should look at? First is the broad-based. The GDP has to be broad-based. First indicator is broad-based. Broad-based. Abhi I'll just explain the meaning. What is broad-based? Second is that it has to be participative. Growth process has to be participative. Participative. The important feature of the inclusive growth. And the third is the shared growth. Shared growth. Therefore, any growth process which is broad-based, which is participative, and which is shared will be termed as the inclusive growth. Will be termed as the inclusive growth. Any growth process which is broad-based. Question is, what is broad-based? Broad-based means, जैसे मैंने कल ही बताया था आपको कि GDP, the source of GDP is three sectors. Source is the three sectors: agriculture, industry, including infrastructure, and services. The three sectors are there. Basically, broadly, three sectors are there. GDP should come equitably from all these sectors. It should not be concentrated or driven by one sector only. That is broad-based. In case of India, जैसे मैंने कल ही बोला था आपको कि in case of India, agriculture is contributing only 15%. This is contributing only 25%, and this is 60%. ये broad figures हैं. Just broadly, you have to remember. एक चीज आप ध्यान रखिए, यूपीएससी में कभी भी they are not bothered about the exact figure. 59.78. They don't want such kind of accuracy. They only want that the candidate is aware of the major trend, and trend is important. You see that if you look at this composition, is it broad-based? Here the growth is led by the service sector. In case of India, the GDP growth is led by service sector. It is not a broad-based economy. Agriculture, which is contributing or which is having the 46% of the population, is only contributing 15% of GDP. And therefore, those engaged in agriculture, their productivity is very low. Productivity is very, very low. And the 30% or 32% engaged in services, they are contributing 60% of GDP. Or within the service sector, we have formal and informal. Within the service, we have the formal service sector and informal service sector. इंडस्ट्री में भी फॉर्मल इनफॉर्मल है, फॉर्मल एंड इनफॉर्मल. ये कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर है सबको? व्हाट इज फॉर्मल, व्हाट इज इनफॉर्मल, व्हाट इज फॉर्मल, व्हाट इज इनफॉर्मल, व्हाट इज फॉर्मल? हाँ जी, नहीं वो तो ठीक है, सैलरी चाहे कुछ भी हो. हाउ डू यू डिफाइन दैट द पर्टिकुलर सेक्टर इज फॉर्मल? गवर्नमेंट ही फॉर्मल है सिर्फ? नहीं, क्या फीचर है उसके? वो इनफॉर्मल में रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन नहीं है. देखिए, व्हेन वी टॉक द फॉर्मल सेक्टर, तो दो तीन इंपॉर्टेंट कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं. One is that the persons who are engaged in the formal sector, they have the contractual employment. They are given a written contract of employment. Their job is based on the contract. For example, you are joining the government as a IAS. The Department of Personnel in the government will issue the letter to you, and you will sign a contract with the government. Formal contract is signed. Your job, your terms and conditions, what is the perks associated with the service, all will be mentioned in the letter, in the contract. And that formal contract is signed. And after that, you are posted somewhere. You will be sent for training somewhere. Masuri mein you will be sent for training. But the government will issue a formal letter to you and contract also. And you will sign the contract, they will keep the contract in your file. Even in the big corporate houses, same procedure is followed. They also issue the formal letter, appointment letter to the person concerned, indicating all terms and conditions. Therefore, the first condition of formal sector is where job is based on the formal contract, and your the job tenure, terms and conditions of the jobs, they are known to you in advance. A priori, you know what will be your salary, what will be your terms and conditions, you know it. The first condition. Second condition is the social security. In all the formal jobs, you're provided social security in the form of pension, in the form of the health facilities, or maybe in the form of educational facilities to your family. All these are provided to you. And in the formal sector, even if you want to leave the job, there is a procedure. Procedure of leaving the job is also defined in advance. अगर आपको पसंद नहीं आ रही है, you want to leave the job, there is a set procedure you have to follow. Therefore, if these conditions are defined in any job, that job is called formal job, formal sector. In informal sector, nothing of that sort happens. वहाँ कोई contractual job नहीं है. वहाँ आप आए, आपको जो ऑनर है आप पसंद आए, उन्होंने कहा ठीक है कल से जॉब पे आ जाओ. तीसरे दिन उनको लगा आपकी शक्ल अच्छी नहीं लगी, उन्होंने कहा अभी कल से मत आना. If this kind of system is there, that is informal. No contract, no social security, and no established procedure of removing a person from the job. In government or in any big formal private organization, nobody can remove you from the job unless a set procedure is followed. But in formal sector, nothing of that thing happens. And the one more important part in the formal sector is your wages and salaries are pre-decided. And they are decided, they are known to you. Their annual increment, annual gains, they are all mentioned in advance to you, so that you know each and everything before joining the particular job. In formal sector, nothing is known. Whether there is an increment in the salary or not, then nobody knows. Owner के ऊपर है, उसकी मर्जी है बढ़ाएगा, नहीं मर्जी है नहीं बढ़ाएगा. So this is the three, four important difference between formal and informal sector. So therefore, in services sector or services G, any question? तो ये आपको ध्यान रखना है, informal, formal. In service sector, the informal sector is about 90%, more than 90%. And it is only 10% is the formal sector. Even less than 10% is the formal sector. Therefore, informal sector is very big in India. Very big in India. You take any sector, the informal sector is very big. Agriculture is whole informal sector. Agriculture is not a formal sector. Agriculture is informal sector. In industry and infrastructure, we have a formal, informal. In services, we have a formal, informal. Services में government jobs, as she is saying, the government jobs are formal. Big organizations like the Tata and the Ambanis and all they are giving the job, they are formal. And therefore, the formal jobs are also in private sector also, but the size is very, very short. Less than 10% is the formal jobs in India, and the informal jobs is more than 90%. And within the informal jobs, more than 50% is self-employed. More than 50% is self-employed. जैसे छोटी छोटी दुकान और छोटे छोटे काम जो लोग कर रहे हैं धीमे कोई पंक्चर की दुकान खोल के बैठ गया कुछ, they are informal sector or self-employed. Therefore, informal sector is very, very important in case of India. So therefore, in the service sector itself, these 10% people are contributing around 80% of the service GDP. See importance. 10% of the formal service sector is contributing more than 80% of service GDP. अगर 60% सर्विस से आ रही है GDP, 60% का 48% is coming from formal service sector, and remaining is coming from informal sector. It means the base of the GDP is not broad. GDP is coming from selected sector, and within the selected sector, from the formal sector. That's why in the first case, we are not able to prove that India is on the path of the inclusive growth. Because GDP is not broad-based as far as India is concerned. हाँ जी. कौन? नहीं, ऐसे तो पान वाला जो बैठा है वो भी कमाता है, पान वाले, लेकिन उसकी सर्विस, उसकी सैलरी कितनी है, इनकम कितनी है, हाउ डू यू नो? डू यू हैव एनी रिकॉर्ड? Definitely, but how many persons are there of this category in informal sector? Very few, very few. अगर आप दिल्ली में ढूंढने चलेंगे तो आपको 10-15 लोग ऐसे मिलेंगे informal sector में, those who are earning much more than the colleagues. मैंने पान वाले का एग्जाम्पल दिया. अजमेरी गेट पे एक पान वाला है, and he only gives पान only for 2 hours. और 2 घंटे में उससे पान लेने के लिए huge queue is there. Rich people come there to get the पान. और 2 घंटे के अंदर he earned the 50,000 rupees. But how many पान वाlas are there? And how much he is reporting as an income to the income tax department? Nothing. You don't know. So we are going by majority. We are going by majority. Therefore, majority, as I said, the 50% are self-employed. And among the self-employed, maybe some exceptional cases are there. अब एक जो गोलगप्पे और चाट पकौड़ी बेचता है करोल बाग में, उसकी इनकम पूछ लो आप. He may be earning the 5,000 rupees per day. He may be. But question is, we are talking about the economy as a whole. India. And India is a very big country. You will find such exceptional cases only in few cities. But majority of the informal sector is very, very poor. If you compare the productivity, average productivity in informal sector with average productivity of formal sector, you will find difference of 8 to 10 times. Informal sector में average salary कितनी है? As per the government records, hardly 15,000 average. 12 से 15,000 per month is the average salary in the informal sector. In the formal sector, average salary is 1,20,000. Average salary. You see the difference, 8 times. 7 to 8 times is the largest salary in formal sector. As meaning thereby, productivity is 8 to 10 times more in the formal sector as compared to informal sector. Informal sector. Therefore, the informal sector is earning very, very less. The example is, quoting example I am also mentioning, they are very, very few in this country. They will not change the character of the informal sector. Informal sector will remain the low productive, low skill to semi-skilled sector. That is the problem. That is the issue. In the informal sector, the larger labor force is either unskilled or semi-skilled. Only very few has acquired some skill. They are earning a huge amount of money, but they are very few. Yes. इसलिए क्योंकि 46% वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन हम डिफाइन करते हैं हिंदुस्तान में 15 से लेके 60 इयर्स ऑफ एज, दैट इज अवर वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन। इस एज ग्रुप में 15 से 60 के बीच में 46% आर स्टिल डिपेंडेंट ऑन एग्रीकल्चर। 91 में व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड द लिबरलाइजेशन, around 60% were engaged in agriculture, and the share of agriculture was also 35%. Today, the share of agriculture is 15% only, but still 46% are dependent on agriculture. That's why we still say, to a certain extent, we are still an agrarian economy. It's not because agriculture is contributing much in the GDP, but because dependence on agriculture is still very high. It's still very high. And as I said yesterday also, if you add the allied sectors, the percentage goes to 60%. The 60% of the people are still dependent on agriculture for their livelihood, for their occupation. And that's why we still call it agrarian economy. Why? ये फीचर है, जब भी इकोनॉमी डेवलप, इसलिए ना बताया ना मैंने आपको, दोज इंगेज इन एग्रीकल्चर देयर प्रोडक्टिविटी इज वेरी वेरी लो। कल भी मैंने एग्जांपल दिया था आपको कि एज पर द गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड, ए फार्म इन द एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर, हाउ मच इज द अर्निंग पर डे? दैट इज 27 rupees. 27 rupees is the per day earning in agriculture sector. So 27 rupees is nothing. And 5-member family is 135 rupees. 135 rupees a 5-member family is earning. It is very, very low because productivity is low in agriculture. That's why 46% लोग 15% contribute कर रहे हैं GDP में. So 15% income is distributed among 46% people. Therefore, the earning per head will be very, very low. That's why the problem in India is this. This is true that as economy develops, share of agriculture is bound to fall. Share of agriculture is bound to fall. But at the same time, the dependence on agriculture is also bound to fall. People who are dependent on agriculture is also bound to fall. If you look at the America or Europe, they are contributing only 5% to GDP, their agriculture sector, but only 2% of their population is dependent on agriculture. But एक feature में we are competing with the Europe, our share of agriculture in GDP is falling, and we have reached to 15%. But on the other hand, dependence on agriculture is not falling. Why it is not falling? Of course, this is a topic of debate, because we don't have enough jobs in the non-agriculture sector. People are confining to agriculture not by choice, but by compulsion. कौन रहना चाहता है गांव में? कोई नहीं. But those who are staying there, they are by compulsion, because they don't find jobs in the urban areas or non-agriculture sector. That's why this situation has emerged. That's why we say that the growth rate in India, of course, we are growing at a very decent rate of growth, 6.5 to 7% per annum. This is considered to be the highest growth rate today in the world. But this growth is not broad-based. Very few sectors are contributing to this growth rate. That's why this is not a broad-based growth. we cannot conclude that based on the composition of the GDP, we call it a inclusive growth. The share of agriculture still has to fall more, but the dependence on agriculture also has to fall, which is not taking place. जब unemployment हम करेंगे class के अंदर, you will see why it is not falling. Because we don't have the enough jobs in the non-agricultural sector. Why we don't have the enough jobs in non-agricultural sector? Why? Because our techniques of production is becoming more and more capital intensive. अब देखो ना इंडस्ट्री 25%, और ये 25% आज नहीं है, 91 में भी इतनी थी, 91 में भी यही शेयर था और आज भी यही शेयर है. तो जो एग्रीकल्चर से शेयर घटा, बढ़ा कहाँ? सर्विस सेक्टर में. इंडस्ट्री हैज बीन रिमेन अनटच्ड. Whatever share of agriculture has fallen, it is compensated by increase in agriculture, because 100% लाना है ना आपको. अगर एग्रीकल्चर में 35% से 15% रह गया, तो 20% additional from where it will come? Industry has not contributed additional 20%. Which sector has contributed is the service sector. Why? Because after liberalization, the modern services sector has expanded very fast. Of course, Rajiv Gandhi started the IT enabled services, but they picked up after liberalization. IT enabled services, financial services, insurance services, hospitality services, all these picked up after liberalization. And they contributed significantly toward the GDP, because these are the sector where you need highly skilled labor, you need lot of capital, and therefore those who are engaged in these sectors, they are paid heavily, they are paid a very high income, and when the formal service sector expands, GDP will expand. Automatically. Getting your point? Therefore, GDP is contributed by only few selected sectors within the service and selected sector within the industry. Industry also we have informal and formal sector, and MSME is contributing significantly in the industry sector. So therefore, the simple point here is to move further in the inclusive growth topic, that our growth is not broad-based as it is expected with the position in our globe as far as economic growth is concerned. Economic growth in terms, we are number 5, we are 5th position. But when we translate this economic growth into inclusive growth, we find we are very far away. We are very far away from achieving the economic growth, inclusive growth based on the 7% economic growth. Now the participative. Participative means here, this is in agriculture. The NSS, National Sample Survey Organization, they keep undertaking surveys. अब NSS तो बंद हो गया, अब PLFS आ गया. सुने नाम? उन 2011 तक जो सर्वे आता था, that was the name of NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization. But thereafter it is changed. Now government is publishing the PLFS. नहीं पता. ठीक है, ये करेंगे भी. जो हम आएंगे ना, I'll explain to you the difference between the NSSO survey and PLFS survey. That I will discuss in detail. But organization is the same. नहीं, लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन तो पहले भी आता था, अब थोड़ा नेचर बदल दिया उसका. सैंपल को कलेक्ट करने का जो बेस है, दैट हैज बीन चेंज्ड, एंड बिकॉज द बेस हैज चेंज्ड, द नंबर हैव चेंज्ड. That we will discuss when we go to the unemployment. But here the participative. Participative means the growth will be inclusive if every person in the working age group gets the opportunity to participate in the growth process according to its capabilities. According to its capabilities. We are not saying कि सारे के सारे IAS बन जाएंगे 15 से 59 के बीच में. We are not saying that. We are just saying that the growth will be inclusive if in the working population group all are given the opportunity to participate in the growth process in accordance with their capabilities, skills and capabilities. If you are an engineer, you are given the opportunity to select your occupation. It means as and when you wish to join a job as per your capability, you get the job. You get the job on demand. If that is the situation is there, that is called participative. That is called participative. When the job is available on demand. But when I am saying job is available on demand, means the job is available on demand as per your capabilities, as per your skills, as per the skill set you have acquired over a period of time. अगर आप plumber हैं, अगर plumber की job चाहिए, if you want, you will get the job. It means that the growth is participative. Growth is participative. But if you are not getting the job, even if you want to do the job at the market wage rate, then it is not a participative. Then it is not a participative. If you are getting the job at the market rate, as and when you wish, the growth will be considered as a participative. But if you are not getting the job at the market rate, then the growth will not be participative. It means unemployment rate is very, very high in such a situation as we are experiencing. If a person is willing to work in his as per his skills and capabilities at the market wage rate and he is getting the job, then the growth is considered to be participative. But if you are finding the job and you are not getting it, and the people are forced to sit at home, and those who have land, they are forced to migrate to the agriculture, then growth is not participative. Participatory. Market wage rate, what is prevailing wage rate? आप IAS बनना चाह रहे हो. You know the pay scale of the IAS officer, you know the pay scale, and given the pay scale you still want to become. अगर आप IIT engineer हैं, you can get the very high salary in the private sector, but in the IAS you will get the pay as per the government pay scale. You may get 70,000, 80,000 to start with, and if you are an IIT engineer, you will get 1.5 or 2 lakhs in the private sector, but still you are willing to join this service, and you are getting as per your skills and capabilities. It means growth is participative. But if you are not, market wage rate means prevailing service conditions, prevailing salaries, prevailing wage rate. Wages are normally associated with the workers. Salary is associated with the white collars. White collar, blue collar, दो तरह के workers हैं ना. Blue collars and जो menial workers, उनके केस में we normally talk about wage, and salary case में we talk about white collar jobs, clerk and the administrative jobs. So therefore, the given market wage rate, if the jobs are available as per your skills and capabilities, as and when you wish, then the growth is set to be inclusive. Because when you get the job, in return you share the benefits. Because participative is related with the shared growth. Because when you are getting the jobs and the other occupation in the market, you get the benefit of the growth. You are paid in return. If you are in the job, you are paid salaries or wages in return. And if you are an entrepreneur, you are earning profit in return. And the salaries and profit you earned is the share of the growth, the benefit of the growth reaching to you, So therefore, the inclusive growth can happen only when the broad-based, participative and shared. When I say shared growth means whatever growth is taking place is shared by all equitably, not equally. You just keep this in mind, equitably. Equitably is in accordance with your skills and capabilities. In accordance with your skills and capabilities. That is the shared growth. And therefore, the salaries and wages you get is the benefits of the growth reaching to you. But if you remain unemployed for a longer period of time, neither you are participating nor you are getting the benefits of the growth. In that situation, the growth is not inclusive. Growth is not inclusive. So we will see that in case of India, we still have the huge population which is under poverty and hunger. I mean, they are not sharing the growth, benefits of the growth. And therefore, the first strategy is removal of hunger to zero by 2030 from the globe. But instead of the number of people who are facing hunger problem, instead of decreasing, they are increasing. But we are confined to our India's economy. We'll find that still we have a huge people below the poverty line. Huge people. Still there are people facing the hunger problem. The hunger problem. They are facing the hunger. And malnutrition you forget about. 60% of the population is facing the malnutrition problem. And therefore, the government is implementing so many social welfare schemes. One example I am giving right from the first day is Pradhan Mantri Jan Kalyan Yojana, या उज्ज्वला योजना, बहुत सारी, या आयुष्मान भारत. All these are schemes are the welfare schemes under which government is giving the benefits to these specific groups under these schemes, so that they start sharing the benefits of the growth, and we can reduce the hunger to zero. That's why this is expansion of this scheme is okay. But the question is the coverage of this scheme. That is the major question that remains on the board. No doubt everybody is questioning the quantum or the coverage of this scheme. 80 crore people are not facing the hunger problem in the country. 80% turns out to be 60% of the population. They are not facing the hunger problem. Because on the other hand, we are saying the poverty ratio in the country as per the official record of 2011. 2011 के बाद गवर्नमेंट ने कोई पॉवर्टी का फिगर पब्लिश नहीं किया. 11 में भी 21% population was below the poverty line. Even that is considered to be correct. Still the 28 crore people are there who may be facing the hunger problem. But we are providing the free ration of 5 kg per month to 80 crore, 81.36 crores. That is the question. But the scheme is still desirable. So my question is, because the shared growth is not taking place, that's why government need to intervene to divert some benefits to those who are deprived from the benefits of the growth so far. Getting your point? And therefore, the inclusive growth, if you analyze, India's growth process. It is not inclusive at the moment. Of course, Government of India is trying very hard to make it inclusive, but still we are far away from the inclusivity of the growth process. Is clear? आज आपको असाइनमेंट मिलेगा, मैंने दे दिया इसको रवि को. You will find many questions I have framed on this issue, and I want you to write in 200 words. ठीक है जी? हाँ बेटा बोलो 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 जल्दी जल्दी बोलो, टाइम कम है बहुत, टाइम तो बहुत फास्ट निकल जाता है यहाँ. यस, ये आप ये दिमाग से निकाल दो, यूपीएससी में अगर आप कोई नेगेटिव लिख के आओगे तो आपके नंबर कट जाएंगे. इन दिमाग से निकाल दो. ये क्वेश्चन आपके साथ दिमाग में तब आएगा कि आपको कम ऊपर से ऑर्डर आएगा कि आपको ऐसा नहीं बोलना है, व्हेन यू विल बी पार्ट ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. यू आर नॉट ए पार्ट ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट इवन टुडे, एंड यूपीएससी इज टेस्टिंग योर एनालिटिकल एबिलिटी. UPSC doesn't want a person who just praises the government. They don't want. They want a person who has a very critical analytical ability. And if you are criticizing the government with basic facts, then you are right. आज ब्यूरोक्रेसी में बहुत सारे लोग क्रिटिसाइज कर रहे हैं कि ये PM JKY को एक्सप्लेन नहीं करना चाहिए था प्राइम मिनिस्टर को. ये थोड़ी उनको सरकार निकाल देगी बाहर. बट दे कैन नॉट टॉक इट ओपनली इन द प्रेस or in the public. You can still express your views on the file. उसके बाद मिनिस्टर की मर्जी है वो माने या ना माने. Then जिम्मेदारी is on him, not on you. You as a bureaucrat has to brought to his notice the actual facts with analysis. So this is the situation. अब final decision depends upon you. And minister when take the decision, he takes into political considerations in view. And if the PMO said नहीं होना है तो मिनिस्टर कुछ नहीं करेगा, वो कहेगा नहीं नहीं, I overrule your decision and this is going to happen. Finished. But on file you are correct. You have criticized. ये नहीं है कि इसलिए आपकी क्रिटिकल एबिलिटी चाहिए. आपको अपने मिनिस्टर को प्रोज एंड कॉन्स दोनों बताने हैं. उसका डिसीजन उनका है फाइनली. ये डेमोक्रेसी है, डिक्टेटरशिप नहीं है. So therefore role of the bureaucracy is how effectively you analyze a particular situation. ये आपका रोल है. तो इसलिए आपकी ये दिमाग से निकाल दो कि हमेशा गवर्नमेंट को प्रेज ही करना है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. इवन इफ यू आर इन द गवर्नमेंट और यू आर आउटसाइड द गवर्नमेंट, अभी तो आप गवर्नमेंट में है ही नहीं. तो इसलिए यूपीएससी को आप आंसर लिखते समय यू हैव टू बी क्रिटिकल. इफ देयर इज ए बट to be critical, you have to have a solid support system, support arguments, supporting facts वो चाहिए. मैं भी जब आपको क्वेश्चन दिए हैं उसमें I will search what argument you have taken and how effectively you supported your argument with facts and figures. चाहे वो against भी है तो I will give you the marks because we have critically examined and given the facts and figures to support your argument. That is required in the UPSC for the time being. तो ये दिमाग से निकाल दो कि सरकार की को आप क्रिटिसाइज नहीं कर सकते. You can. हाँ जी करो. कौन से उसमें आएगा? वो आपको रिसीट देता है, रिसीट देता है रेंट की, रिसीट दे रहे हैं आप, है ना? नहीं वो एक ही बात है. एग्रीमेंट इज रजिस्टर्ड विद द रजिस्ट्रार ऑफिस. वो है या नहीं है? सिर्फ साइन करा के अपने पास रख लिया उसने. हाँ तो ये इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर है. इट विल बिकम फॉर्मल ओनली when that agreement is registered with the registrar office, because we have a registrar office here. unless that agreement is registered in the registrar's office, it is not formal. अभी तो उसने आपको समझाने के लिए कि भाई मैं आपसे ये रेंट ले रहा हूँ, ये टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन है, सब डाल दिया उसमें और आपसे साइन करा के खुद साइन करके अपनी जेब में रख लिया. That is informal. Because it is not known to the government authorities. Anything which is not known to the government authorities is not considered to be the formal income. यही तो black income है. This is what the black income is. Why the black money is generated? Because black money is unaccounted money. Economy में है वो भी, economy का ही part है. But that is unaccounted money. It is not accounted anywhere. It is not accounted anywhere. And because black money is much higher than the regular money, that's why our tax income is very low. कितने लोग टैक्स दे रहे हैं गवर्नमेंट में? आइडिया है आपको कुछ? 3 करोड़. 3 करोड़ लोग 140 करोड़ में से इज ओनली पेइंग टैक्सेस. 6 करोड़ 6.5 करोड़ और फाइलिंग रिटर्न्स, उसमें आधे रिटर्न्स जो हैं वो जीरो टैक्स के हैं. टैक्स नहीं दे रहे, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट का रूल है आपकी इनकम 8 लाख से ज़्यादा है तो रिटर्न फाइल करना ही पड़ेगा. तो रिटर्न फाइल कर दिया लेकिन जीरो टैक्स. Only 3 crores people are paying taxes. It doesn't mean that only 3 crores are earning the taxable income. जैसे मैंने बताया पान वाला, चाट पकड़ी वाले, they are earning much more, but they are not paying taxes because their money is unaccounted, and that is generating the black money in the system. हाँ जी, नहीं वो इस रीज़न नहीं है इसका. वो रीज़न इसलिए है नहीं है इसका, इनका मेथड इसलिए यूज़ नहीं करते कि यूनाइटेड नेशन सिस्टम ऑफ नेशनल अकाउंटिंग, यूएन का सिस्टम है, वो यूनिवर्सली टू बी एक्सेप्टेड बाय ऑल द कंट्रीज. ओनली देन द डेटा ऑफ इंडिया कैन बी कंपेयर्ड विद द चाइना और चाइना विद जापान. कंपैरेबिलिटी विल बी देयर. 2015 से हमने जीडीपी फैक्टर कॉस्ट निकालना बंद कर दिया, because this is not a recognized method in the United Nations system of national accounting, and we adopted the UN SNA rules from 2015 onwards. And the expenditure and product method, income method we never use now, we is discarded now. इसलिए आपको GDP at factor cost you will never find after 2015. After 2015 you will find GDP at factor cost, GDP at market prices. But after 2015, GDP at factor cost is not estimated. Because GDP at factor cost is replaced by GDP at basic prices as per the UN system. That's why it is not used. Not because the taxpayers come hai. Anji? That is called? अभी मैं आऊँगा ना, आप सवाल पहले पूछ रहे हो. आई विल जस्ट डिस्कस एवरीथिंग विद यू. व्हाट इज फैक्टर कॉस्ट? ये क्लियर हो गया आपको? इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ का कॉन्सेप्ट, इंडस्ट्री का कंट्रीब्यूशन क्यों नहीं बढ़ रहा? इसलिए नहीं बढ़ रहा कि इंडस्ट्री में जो 70% शेयर है वो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का है. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इज कंट्रीब्यूटिंग 70%. And manufacturing share remains stagnant 14 to 16% for the last 40 years. 1991 में भी 14-16% था, 14-15-16, आज भी 15-16% है. Manufacturing share is not increasing. That's why the share of industry is stagnant. Because 70% is coming from the manufacturing. Rest is coming from the infrastructure development, etc. इसलिए थोड़ा 25-28 तक हो जाता है. But the manufacturing share is stagnant. Why it is stagnant? Or what government is doing for enhancing the manufacturing output? We'll discuss when we reach to industry. I'll discuss the Make in India program. I'll discuss with you the PLI, Production Linked Scheme, and the other schemes of the government which are targeting to enhance the manufacturing output. But still, manufacturing is not responding. Why? That we will discuss there. But your question at the moment is that industry is also stagnant because of stagnation of manufacturing. Manufacturing is hovering around 15-16% only in the last 30-40 years. That's why this is stagnant. But agriculture share is consistently falling, and it is compensated by increasing services share. That's why the India's growth is led by the service sector. Therefore, normally question comes, do you think that the service-led growth is sustainable in the long run? Justify your answer. Question normally comes, और आया भी है, 2 बार आ चुका है question, different language. Do you think that India's service-led growth is sustainable in the long run? Do you think that India's service-led growth is sustainable in the long run? I'm not saying equitable होना चाहिए. I'm only saying that today the 7% rate of growth which we are attaining is mainly because of the service sector. But can we say that service sector can lead in the long run also without the adequate support of the industry and manufacturing? That is the basic question. Do you think it is going to happen? ये question मैंने अभी नहीं रखा है, but this question I'll keep for some other chapter. But this is the important. You think over it. I'll give the answer of this, but this is the question going to come. Inclusive growth, when we adopted, the government shifted its gear 2002 onwards, and various programs were implemented by the government for putting the growth process on inclusive path. For example, I'm mentioning the names of these schemes, but not discussing these schemes in detail today. For example, in 2002, we started the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan program, midday meal program, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan and midday meal program, because our enrollment in the primary or elementary education was very, very low. To promote the enrollment in the primary and the elementary education, the government brought in the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan and midday meal program. For health services, to provide access to health services in the rural areas, the government implemented at that point of time, 2002, 3, 4, 5, National Rural Health Mission. मैं लिख देता हूँ, National Rural Health Mission. In education, we have the SSA, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, and midday meal program. Midday meal program, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. In health service, these are basic services. We implemented National Rural Health Mission, NRHM, National Rural Health Mission, under which we revitalized the primary health centers. ये मैं पुराने प्रोग्राम बता रहा हूँ. Primary health centers. We have 2.5 lakhs primary health centers in the country. Primary health centers. And we revitalized them. National Rural Health Mission. Then we also implemented National Urban Health Mission. National Urban Health Mission. And then the government merged them together and bring National Health Mission. National Health Mission. 2014 में, this is Ayushman Bharat. This is renamed Ayushman Bharat. And in this Ayushman Bharat, we added the insurance component. we added, it has two components. The insurance component, 5 lakh rupees insurance to the persons who are poor, below the poverty line. Ayushman Bharat. So therefore, in health, we implemented many programs immediately after adoption of the agenda for sustainable development to embark upon the process of inclusive growth. Ayushman Bharat 2014-15. NHM is renamed as Ayushman Bharat. इसमें एक कंपोनेंट ऐड कर दिया, दैट इज द हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस. हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस, दो कंपोनेंट है इस प्रोग्राम के. हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस 5 लाख per annum of any member of the family. Any member can avail the benefit up to 5 lakh. And other is again the development of the primary health centers. They call them wellness center now. Primary health center named as wellness center, and they are being developed and modernized under Ayushman Bharat. So therefore, under health, now coming to the livelihood of the people, particularly rural areas. We were implemented National Rural Livelihood Mission from 2011 onwards. National Rural Livelihood Mission, under which we have asked the state governments to form the self-help groups. Under this program, the self-help groups are formed. Self-help groups, and they are given the financial assistance, technical assistance, as well as the skill training to start any venture of their choice. नेशनल रूरल लाइवलीहुड मिशन, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट स्कीम है सरकार की. नेशनल रूरल लाइवलीहुड मिशन, MISSI है. हाँ, स्किल ट्रेनिंग नहीं, ये जो रूरल एरियाज का है, MSME इज डिफरेंट. ये then employment, to generate employment particularly in the rural areas, government implemented MG Narega. सुना है नाम ना? महात्मा गांधी नेशनल रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी Act was enacted by the Parliament, under which the employment is guaranteed. 100 days job is guaranteed to every youth in the rural areas. That is very, very important programs. Even today, it is very, very important. And around 1 lakh crore is allocated under this scheme. And this is an open-ended program. What does it mean? This is, इसकी importance क्या है? This is open-ended program. What do you mean by open-ended? Anybody who is? Anji? No, not for all. Only rural youth. What is the meaning of open-ended? Open-ended program is because, let me explain to you. ये प्रीलिम में आया हुआ है क्वेश्चन, इसलिए मैंने पूछ लिया आपसे. एक क्वेश्चन प्रीलिम में आया हुआ, ओपन एंडेड का मतलब क्या है? 4 ऑप्शन दे दिए उसे. Open-ended means because this program is implemented under an act, Parliament Act. And once the Parliament enacted an act, that has become compulsion on the government to implement. And we don't know how many people will join under Manrega. We don't know. States, because people have to join in the states. Rural areas में states में join करेंगे लोग बाग. इसका process क्या है? I'm not discussing how they will join. क्या modus operandi है? That I'm not interested today. But I'm interested to tell you, under this program, anybody who is claimed to be unemployed is bound to get the job under the program, Manrega. But obviously the unskilled jobs are offered under this program. But question is, we don't know the size of the people who are going to join in a particular year. Budget is presented on 1st February, and some amount is allocated under Manrega. Based on the past year experience, we allocate the amount. But that amount is not final. No matter how many people have joined in these states, the central government has to fund the program no matter how much is allocated in the budget. There is no ceiling on the allocation under Manrega. Central government is bound to release the funds on the demand of the states. That is the compulsion of the central government. You cannot say budget में पैसा नहीं है. You cannot say under this program. The money has to be released because this is 100% centrally funded program. 100% centrally funded program. And central government has to bear the cost. The government is bound to release the funds as demanded by the states. How much the state will demand, you don't know in the beginning of the year. You will come to know only when the program is implemented by the state in a forthcoming year. Budget 23-24 का प्रेजेंट हो गया, अब वो फरवरी में प्रेजेंट हो गया. अब 23-24 में जॉब्स लोगों को चाहिए वो नॉर्मली मई, जून, जुलाई, अगस्त में चाहिए. जब कृषि में, एग्रीकल्चर में सोइंग सीजन खत्म, हार्वेस्टिंग है नहीं, पीपल आर फ्री and they want jobs in the Manrega. But how many will seek the jobs? Nobody knows. And therefore, या कितने भी लोग आ जाएं, state government has to provide the job. And based on the employment in a particular state, they put the demand to the central government. This much money we need for Manrega. And central government has no option but to release the money. That is called open-ended. Anji, 100 days. 100 days is the limit. You can provide 100 days employment to any unemployed person in the rural areas. In case of any special circumstances, drought aa gaya, flood aa gaya, you can increase to 150 days. But that you have to take the permission from the central government to enhance the job. हाँ बेटा. अगर हम ये करेंगे ना तो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट कहेगी हमारे पास पैसे ही नहीं है. दे विल नॉट इम्प्लीमेंट द प्रोग्राम. जहां उनको शेयर करना पड़ेगा दे विल नॉट इम्प्लीमेंट इट. जहां उनको शेयर करना पड़ेगा कि 40% आप शेयर करो, 60% गवर्नमेंट देगी, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट देगी, दे विल नॉट इम्प्लीमेंट इट. वो कहेंगे अनएम्प्लॉयड रहता रहे. हाउ डज इट मैटर? बिकॉज एक्ट इज नॉट पास बाय द असेंबली. एक्ट इज पास बाय द पार्लियामेंट. And therefore, it is the responsibility of the central government to implement it. And therefore, they kept it 100% centrally funded scheme. 100% centrally funded scheme. And how much the government has to release to a particular state will depend upon how many people are engaged under Manrega in particular state. And based on that, the central government has to release the money. Central government cannot take a plea, there is no fund in the budget. That's why this is an open-ended program. Open-ended means there is no ceiling on the financial budget under the program. No ceiling. गवर्नमेंट को कहीं से पैसा कम करना पड़ेगा, वही मैंने बताया कि प्रायोरिटाइजेशन, स्केर्सिटी, फंड्स आपके स्केर्स हैं तो आपको कहीं से ना कहीं पैसा निकालना पड़ेगा एंड यू हैव टू गिव टू मनरेगा. यही तो इकोनॉमिक्स है, यही स्केर्सिटी है, बिकॉज रिसोर्सेज आर स्केर्स. अगर आपको मनरेगा में 70,000 करोड़ आपने एलोकेट किया, डिमांड आ गई 1,20,000 करोड़ की, 50,000 करोड़ एक्स्ट्रा रिक्वायर्ड under Manrega, say in 2023-24. So government has to allocate 50,000 extra under Manrega, under supplementary grants. Supplementary grants comes in December. And what government will do? Government will reduce the allocation from some scheme and allocate extra to the Manrega. This is the scarcity. This is the prioritization. And when you prioritize the programs, you have to allocate the money. And opportunity because you know, अब 50,000 करोड़ अगर आपको मनरेगा में एक्स्ट्रा देना है, you have to forego from somewhere. That is the opportunity cost. Clear? That's why ये क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है, मैं इसलिए आपको एक्सप्लेन कर दिया कि what do you mean by open ended program. और कोई प्रोग्राम ओपन एंडेड नहीं है बजट में. हाँ, हाँ जी, नॉट नेसेसरली कि सारे ओपन एंडेड 100% सेंट्रली फंडेड है, नॉट नेसेसरी. हाँ, नो, नॉट नेसेसरली. अगर यूपीएससी स्टेटमेंट करती है कि प्रोग्राम इम्प्लीमेंटेड बाय पार्लियामेंट एक्ट इज centrally 100% centrally funded, then it is okay. Because act enacted by the parliament is the responsibility of the central government to implement. And they want that if we make it a shared program, 40-60 or 50-50 or 25-75, many of these states will not implement it. वो कहेंगे हमारे पास तो है ही नहीं पैसा शेयर करने के लिए. If central government really wants to implement any program effectively on the ground, they have to bear the 100% cost. That's why the centrally sponsored schemes are centrally funded 100% or on shared basis. तो centrally sponsored और central sector schemes में difference मालूम? दो तरह की schemes हैं, एक centrally sponsored schemes, एक central sector schemes. क्या difference है दोनों में? और थोड़ा इफेक्टिवली और करेक्टली कोई एक्सप्लेन कर सकता है डिफरेंस बिटवीन सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड एंड सेंट्रल सेक्टर स्कीम्स? सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड स्कीम्स irrespective of its funding pattern, irrespective, चाहे वो 100% funded है चाहे वो shared basis है, is implemented through state machinery. That is important. All centrally sponsored schemes, irrespective of their funding pattern, are implemented through state machinery. State machinery. State के through implement होगी वो सिर्फ direct. Central government cannot implement directly in a particular state. State machinery has to be involved. While in the central sector schemes, they are implemented through central government machinery. No state government is involved in that. For example, the atomic energy plants, nuclear power plants, they are established in various states, but they are central sector schemes. All defense projects, central sector schemes. No state government machinery is involved. they are directly implemented through central government implementation machinery. ये difference है दोनों में. Funding pattern में कोई difference नहीं है. But the centrally sponsored schemes are always implemented through state government machinery. चाहे वो सर्व शिक्षा अभियान है, चाहे मिड डे मील है, चाहे वो NRHM है, चाहे वो नेशनल रूरल लाइवलीहुड मिशन है, all these are centrally sponsored, which are implemented through state machinery. But any program, scientific programs, CSIR की इतनी सारी labs हैं all over the country, nuclear power plants हैं, defense projects हैं, और central government की undertakings हैं, they are implemented directly through central government implementation machinery. ये difference है दोनों में. Clear? So therefore, for attaining the inclusive growth, the government put various programs in the beginning to attain the inclusive growth in our growth process. In 2010-11, we also passed the Right to Education Act. Right to Education Act, under which elementary education is guaranteed free of cost to anyone in the country. It means if somebody is not getting the education, they can go to the court of law, and court will direct the government to provide the free elementary education to a particular person. The Right to Education Act is enacted. Right to Information Act is also enacted, so that people are empowered to know what are the government projects, government schemes are being implemented in various parts of the country, so that they can get the benefit of it. So therefore, in the first decade, immediately after adoption of the Sustainable Development Agenda, the Government of India implemented various programs for bringing the inclusiveness in our growth process. Clear? What we have done on the environment compatibility side, because sustainable development के दो aspect है ना, inclusive growth and environment compatibility. What we have done on the environment compatibility side, government changed all the regulations regarding setting up of any industry and infrastructure projects, and government made it compulsory that all the projects which are likely to impact the environment, either in the form of air pollution, noise pollution, water pollution, in any form, if you are impacting the climate, you have to have the permission of the central government. If the project is central government funded, if it is state government funded, the state government has to provide the permission. This is a compulsory now. This is a compulsory. An environment impact assessment has to be done of every project, EIA, environment impact assessment regarding environment compatibility. Environment compatibility, what we have done is that EIA has become compulsory. Environment impact assessment, any project which is to be implemented after 2002, it has to accompany the environment impact assessment report, and government will examine the environment impact assessment report. Suppose a particular project has some impact on the environment. Suppose some project, you have to establish a factory, say in the forest area, and you have to cut 10,000 trees. 10,000 trees are to be cut to establish the factory. That will have an impact on the environment. Then in such cases where any kind of impact assessment is there on the climate, then we have to submit the mitigation report. Mitigation report. Every project has to accompany first by EIA, and if EIA says that the project is going to affect the environment in different ways, then mitigation report has to be submitted. How the project authority will mitigate the impact. अगर आपने 10,000 पेड़ काट दिए, how you will compensate? Assuming that 20% is surviving rate of the plant, the industry authorities have to give the undertaking. They will plant 50,000 trees in the region, assuming the survival rate is 20%. So that 10,000 trees which were cut, they are regrown in the area. मैं एग्जाम्पल दे, अगर मान लिया the project is discharging some waste in the nearby river or water body, then they have to give the report. In the report, we will establish water treatment plant, and after treating the water waste, we will release the wastewater to the river so that water is not polluted. So therefore, this has made compulsory after 2002. It is very, very important, the regulation introduced by the government. Second thing which government has done is the commitment made by the Indian government, by the Prime Minister in 2015 COP meeting. प्राइम मिनिस्टर, क्योंकि तभी नए नए प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने थे हमारे मोदी जी, he was enthusiastic and therefore he made certain commitment from India's side that we will do this much for the climate change, what India will do, and he made the commitment. 3 commitments he has made. He was not required to make commitments because we were developing countries. Commitment to come from developed countries. But as I said, Prime Minister was over enthusiastic and therefore he made the commitment. And 3 commitments he made. The commitment he has made has the implications for all economic policies of the government. What are the 3 commitments he has made? Anybody have read somewhere? नेट जीरो, क्या जीरो कैसे हो जाएगा? इतना ट्रैफिक चल रहा है, जीरो कैसे हो? देखिए, सिविल सर्विस में ना आपको परफेक्शन चाहिए. ये जो लैंग्वेज आप यूज कर रहे हो ना क्लास के अंदर, ये नहीं चलेगी वहां पे. यू हैव टू बी वेरी वेरी परफेक्ट इन राइटिंग द सेंटेंसेस, बिकॉज यूपीएससी में वर्ड लिमिट है, आपको सबको पता है. 200 वर्ड्स में लिखना है. 200 वर्ड्स में आप तभी लिख सकते हो व्हेन यू हैव ए परफेक्शन ऑन द सब्जेक्ट. आपकी लैंग्वेज शुड बी वेरी वेरी परफेक्ट. हर सब्जेक्ट की अपनी अपनी लैंग्वेज है. हिस्ट्री की अलग लैंग्वेज है, ज्योग्राफी की अलग है, इकोनॉमिक्स की अलग है. So you have to be perfect, have to attain the proficiency in language. I assume everybody has English medium. You have to attain the proficiency in the language writing. What she is saying is not clear. What you want to say? नहीं, वही तो कह रहा हूँ ना मैं. और किसी को कुछ याद? What are the 3 commitment India has made in COP 15? And what we have done thereafter, that is more important. हाँ जी, नहीं कैसे कैसे करेंगे? 3 कमिटमेंट हैं जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने दिए. पहला इंपॉर्टेंट कमिटमेंट रिगार्डिंग द CO2 एमिशन, रिगार्डिंग द CO और CO2 एमिशन. CO2 एमिशन, कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड और कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, इनका एमिशन. बिकॉज व्हाट कमिटमेंट वी हैव मेड? We have made the commitment that whatever was the emission density in 2005, 15 में कमिटमेंट कर रहे हैं. You take it, keep in mind. 15 में we have committed that the CO2 intensity or carbon emission intensity, which we were having in 2005, will be reduced by half by 2025. See the commitment. The carbon emission intensity, which we were having in 2005, will be reduced by half by 2025. Of course, target is up to 2030, but we said we will do it by 2025. Of 25 आ रहा है. That is first commitment. Second commitment is the sunk will be created to absorb the carbon dioxide equivalent to 2 billion tons of oil equivalent. Second commitment. हाँ, because CO2 कौन absorb कर रहा है? Plant. हम तो environment में carbon dioxide छोड़ रहे हैं. When we are breathing, we are relieving the carbon dioxide. Transport में we are relieving the carbon dioxide. But who is absorbing? Absorption is done by the plants. They are absorbing the CO2. What we have committed is, we have created a sunk for the absorption of CO2 equivalent to 2 billion tons of oil equivalent. मेजरमेंट का एक यूनिट है ये. कैसे मापेंगे इंटेंसिटी को और कितना आपने एब्जॉर्ब किया, उसे ऑयल के इक्विवेलेंट नापते हैं. हाँ जी, क्या बढ़ जाएगा? नहीं, वो तो जो बढ़ेगा वो तो इम्पैक्ट क्लाइमेट चेंज का होगा ना. What we have committed is, what India is likely to do towards the climate change. Because climate change का impact तो सब जगह से हो रहा है ना, and we are the one who are contributing the most to climate change. We made the second commitment. Third commitment he has made is the fossil fuel based energy. Fossil fuel based energy, that is energy produced by coke, oil, gas. These are called fossil fuel based energy. Will be replaced by renewable energy. Renewable energy. Renewable energy. मैं लिख देता हूँ इधर. Renewable energy. Fossil fuel based. जो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जनरेशन आजकल हमारे यहाँ 80% is coming from the use of the coke and coal. That has to be replaced by renewable energy, and renewable energy capacity to increase by 50%. By 50% by 2030. What is renewable energy? The sources which can be renewed. For example, solar energy, wind energy, biomass energy, and hydropower. These are 4 renewable energy. Prime Minister committed that if 50% of the fossil fuel based energy will be replaced by renewable energy, and the capacity of renewable energy will be enhanced by 50% by 2030. And once these commitments are made, the whole economic policy of the country has changed. In all economic policies of the country, these constraints are imposed. These constraints are imposed. Constraints. No one can use the fossil fuel sources where renewable sources can be utilized. देखा होगा दिल्ली में सारी बसें आपकी इलेक्ट्रिक हो गई. इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल पॉलिसी गवर्नमेंट की आ गई. Even cars, they are giving huge subsidy on selling of the electric vehicles. So this is the replacement of fossil fuel energy. And solar policy अलग से आ गई, wind energy policy अलग से आ गई, biomass energy policy अलग से आ गई, hydroelectric power policy अलग से. So we have promoted these policies. And today, what is the quantum of the renewable energy we are consuming? Any idea? कितना परसेंट हम एनर्जी का रिन्यूएबल से ले रहे हैं? हाँ जी, 3%? नहीं यार, इतना कम नहीं है. 17% of the energy requirement is met through renewable sources. सेवनटीन और 18 समझ लो आप, उसमें ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं है. 17-18% of the energy requirement is met through renewable sources. What is the problem with the renewable sources? Problem with the renewable sources is their reliability. सोलर तो जब भी आएगी जब सूरज निकलेगा. वो वी आर लकी दैट साल में 8 महीने सोलर रेडिएशन इज वेरी हाई इन इंडिया. बट द प्रॉब्लम विद द सोलर एनर्जी इज द सोलर इज जनरेटेड इन द डे टाइम and we require utilization all 24 hours. Therefore, unless we have a storage of the solar energy, we can't use it. And the storage is very costly. Storage of the energy is very, very costly. Because batteries which are coming, lithium batteries are very, very costly. Very costly. That's why electric vehicles are costly. Because lithium batteries are not produced in India. We are not able to produce the lithium batteries even today. Lithium batteries are imported. And therefore, they are very, very costly. That's why the cost of installing the solar is very high. Normal people do not install. It is installed by the government in solar farms. We have targeted to set up 50 solar farms all over the country. करीब 25 के आसपास सेट कर दिए सरकार ने. 5 राजस्थान में अकेले में, 3 मध्य प्रदेश में, तेलंगाना में, आंध्र प्रदेश में, कई जगह है. यूपी में एक है सर. Solar farms are set up. But the question is, all these are issues which we'll consider when we go to the infrastructure. When I'll discuss the infrastructure with you, and when I'll discuss the power with you, I'll discuss all these issues. But here, the 3 commitments are important for ensuring that the growth process is compatible with the environment. Clear? So what we have done to make the development process sustainable in the long run? We have implemented various programs to make it inclusive by nature, one, and we have implemented certain policy guidelines to make it compatible with the environment. इतना clear है? ये रिपोर्ट है कि कोई प्रोजेक्ट बनेगा, उसका इम्पैक्ट एनवायरनमेंट पे क्या होगा, उसको एनवायरनमेंट इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट में लाना पड़ेगा. आपको एक एक्सपर्ट ग्रुप सेटअप करना पड़ेगा. They will assess the environment implication of the project and they will submit their report. That report is compulsory, has to be enclosed with the proposal. Otherwise, government will not consider any proposal. Government will not consider any proposal which is not accompanied by an EIA report. And if EIA highlight some impact on the environment in any form, then mitigation report has to be accompanied. When this whole 3 document will be there, only government will consider that project. Government will consider that project. You know that government rejected the POSCO project of Odisha, and because that was not compatible with the environment. Therefore, compatibility with the environment is become inevitable today, and that is the change we have introduced in our regulations and policies after we adopted agenda for sustainable development. Clear? So today, अब आपको सारे concept clear हैं. Economic growth, economic development, social development, sustainable development, inclusive growth, environment compatibility, all should be very, very clear to you. जो assignment मैंने आपको दिया है, वो इन्हीं के ऊपर है, इन्हीं issues के ऊपर है. ठीक है? Try to attempt. Now the next issue which I am taking up is relating to national income, because we saw that economic growth is measured through GDP and economic development is measured through various composite indices. Like, for example, Human Development Index or Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index, etc. These I am going to discuss with you. We have discussed the concepts. Now we are moving on the measurement. Question is, how do you know that economic growth is being translated into economic development? How will you know that economic growth is translated into sustainable development? You need to have some indicators. You need to have some data. You have to develop some indexes to know whether we are moving in the right direction or not. And therefore, first I will discuss with you the GDP, all nuances relating to GDP. Then I will move on to these composite indexes. Clear? GDP, you know by definition. GDP, what is G, what is D, what is P? Gross, what is gross? Gross is total and D is domestic. What does it mean, domestic? What is domestic? We only include those products which are produced within the geographical boundary of the country. And what is the product? Goods and services. It includes both goods and services. Goods and services. Now, question is, which goods and services to be included? Which goods and services to be included? If you want to estimate GDP for 23-24, which goods and services will be included? All. हाँ जी, नहीं वो तो आ गया डोमेस्टिक में. Only new goods and services. New goods and services will be included. Only new, not the old one. For example, आपने सपोज 5000 कार प्रोड्यूस की इस साल में, so these 5000 new cars will be included in the GDP. Car produced last year may be new in the showroom, but will not be included. Only additional new goods and services produced in the particular time period will be included. जैसे मैंने कल भी कहा था, GDP is a flow concept. It has to be measured within a given time period. And time period, normally we have a financial year, that is 1st April to 31st March. During this period, in various sectors, how many new goods are produced, how many new services are offered, that will be counted. Example, old cars resold in the year will not be counted. आपने देखा होगा हिंदुस्तान में रीसेल की बहुत बड़ी मार्केट है. लोग बाग न्यू कार की बजाय रीसेल में खरीदते हैं, वो सस्ती होती थोड़ी सी. तो न्यू सेल जो रीसेल डन, cars who are resold will not be counted in GDP. Will not be counted because they are not new. They were already included in GDP in the year they were produced. Therefore, only those goods will be counted in the GDP which are produced in the particular time period for which we are calculating GDP. Only new. ये आपको ध्यान रखना है. ये ध्यान रखना है. Only new goods, new services. The services which are given to you last year will not be counted. Services which are offered in the current year will be counted. Will be counted. हाँ जी. New goods and services. Product का easily you can give the example. कोई भी product ले लो आप. For example, the air conditioners. Air conditioners, very few firms are producing. Maybe 10-12 firms are producing air conditioners. How many air conditioner systems they are produced during the year? During the year, because उनके record पे होगा. Only that will be counted. The air conditioner lying in the inventory, but belong to the previous year or previous to previous year, will not be counted in the GDP. Even if they are new, but they will not be counted in the GDP. Many automobile companies, they are selling their old model car in the current year at the discounted price. But this car was produced, say 3 or 4 years back. But because the new model has come, old model has not sold off completely and they are lying in the inventory of the company. They want to sell it in the current year. And the inventory has come in the current year. That will not be counted in GDP. Because that is not produced in the current year. That is produced sometimes in the past. Only those goods which are produced in the current year, in the 12 months period, will be counted in GDP. Similarly, services, electricity. Electricity generated in the last 12 months will be counted. Accumulated generation is very high, but what was generation in the current year will be counted. What is the value of the financial transactions in the current year in the stock market will be counted. What is the capitalization of the company will not be counted. Capitalization is of the assets, that will not be counted. Therefore, because आपको ध्यान में रखना, GDP is a flow concept. Whatever is generated in the current year is counted. मैं resold example दिया कार का. Car resold is not counted, but the commission earned by the agent in the process will be counted in his income. That will be counted in GDP. Anything which is generated afresh in the given period will be counted in GDP. Will be counted in GDP. Last year question था prelim में. Which of the following items are not the part of GDP? 4 आइटम लिख दिए उसने. फिर से combination set बना दिया ना, combination 1 or 2 only, 1 only, 1, 2, 3 only. 4 आइटम लिख दिए. अब 4 आइटम आपको पढ़ के जानना पड़ेगा which is not the part of the GDP. If definition is clear in your mind, you can easily find out of these 4 which is part of the GDP, which is not. And then accordingly see the final combination and give the answer. Very easy. But for that you have to be conceptually clear which is the part of the GDP, which is not. नहीं, यही मैं आपको समझाने जा रहा हूँ कि जो 31 मार्च तक हुआ वो इसी साल में काउंट होगा. जो 1 अप्रैल को हुआ वो अगले साल जाएगा. आपने देखा होगा, आप सरकार में ज्वाइन करेंगे आप, यू विल फाइंड दैट इन ऑल 11 months योर सैलरी विल बी क्रेडिटेड इन योर अकाउंट ऑन 30th और 31st. बट मार्च की सैलरी आपकी 1 अप्रैल को आएगी. Well, that salary will be counted in the next year. That's why for salaried people, the financial year is March to February, not for April to March. Because your March salary is not given on the financial year itself. It is credited in your account on 1st of April. That's why this is not counted in your income tax calculations. Therefore, whatever is created and generated in the given financial year or given period for which we are calculating GDP is to be counted in the GDP. Rest will not be counted. Rest will not be counted. But question is, this is the definition. But how it will be measured? कैसे पता लगेगा हमें कि कितना कार प्रोड्यूस हुई है, उसकी वैल्यू क्या है? The whole value will be counted. How it will be counted? That I'll do the valuation of GDP, how it will be done. I'll not go into the details, technicalities. I'll just discuss with you from GS point of view, which you should know. Which you should know. One. Second thing which is important here is, which somebody was asking in the morning also, the calculation of the GDP in money terms at current year and at the base year prices. What is the difference between the two? हाँ, पूछो बेटा. आप अनम्यूट करके सवाल पूछो. आवाज आ रही है इसकी? आवाज बढ़ाओ बेटा, अपनी वॉल्यूम बढ़ाओ, आवाज नहीं आ रही इधर. हाँ बोलो.
Sir, I'm saying that the final goods that are meant for final consumption.
That I'll explain when we'll go to the valuation. I have not gone to the valuation so far. I've just defined to you. When I'm saying, when I'll go to the valuation, then I'll discuss with you the final expenditure of value-added product. That concept will be introduced. But first you understand which goods and services to be included. One. Second, when we do the valuation, we have to do evaluation both at current prices and base year prices. Two, because prices are fluctuating over a period of time. Prices are going up and down. Down तो कभी जाते नहीं है, वैसे up ही up रहते हैं. Price is going up and up, and therefore you have to remove the price effect from the GDP calculation. And therefore, to remove the price effect, what we have to do is, we have to calculate the GDP under two situations. GDP at market price, and GDP at factor or base year price. अब इसमें दो चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट हैं. Market price is also called current prices. Market price is also called current prices. Current year is the year for which GDP is calculated. For example, you are calculating for 23-24. Therefore, the prices prevailing for each product in 23-24 will be used in calculation of GDP at market price. That will give you the value of GDP at the current prices, market prices. But that involves the impact of price also. Suppose product तो बढ़ा नहीं, price बढ़ गया, value तो बढ़ जाएगी, and therefore GDP will show the increment. But we are interested in knowing actually how much more goods and services are produced. That is possible only when we remove the price effect. And to remove the price effect, we also calculate the GDP at base year. What is the base year? Base year to be defined by the government or by the specialized agencies. They define some past year as a base year, and which keep changing over a period of time. Today the base year is 2011-12. 2011-12 is the base year today, is the base year. So to calculate the GDP at the base year, what we will consider is production in the current year multiplied by the price prevailing in the 11-12. production in the current year. You say suppose the production is X, and you multiplied this by say current year. See, 1 is the base, is the current year. Multiplied it by price of the base year. Normally we write X1 into P0. P0 is used for base year. And when we calculate the GDP and market price, we use X1 into P1. That is current year. And that is the base year. And we sum it over all the sectors. Sectors vary from I to 1 to N. That will give you GDP. Current year. And here you sum up from I 1 to N. That will give you GDP at the base year. Base year is to be selected. Which year to be selected as a base year? Base year should be normal year. It should not be abnormal year like COVID-19. That cannot be base year. Any year which is experiencing drought is not a base year. Any year experiencing any untoward happening is not a base year. Base year has to be normal year. And that nobody else has decided except the government. In the government, specialized agencies are there. Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Their CSO is there. Central Statistical Office. They decide which should be the base year. And government has to approve it. Obviously, when there is no untoward happening, no natural disaster, the stability will be there. Instability will come only when some national disaster has come. COVID-19 आया तो disaster हो गया, है ना? और या कोई और natural disaster हो गया, flood आ गया all over the country, या drought पड़ गया maximum part of the year. It's not a normal year then. Therefore, normal year should be the stable year. That is selected as a base year. उस साल में जो उस product के prices हैं, that will be used. So this is base year GDP. This is current year GDP. So therefore, the data published by the government, by CSO. And जी जोर से बोलो रहा. हाँ, 11-12 is the base year today. क्या क्वेश्चन पूछ रही हैं? क्यों लिया? मैंने बताया ना आपको, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट ने सजेस्ट किया, CSO ने सजेस्ट किया. इससे पहले 5-6 was the base year. उससे पहले 99-2000 was the base year. Base year, as I said, is not a discretionary. आप जो मर्जी base year select कर सकते हो. Selection has to be done by the government. And government में specialized agencies हैं. मैंने कहा CSO is the in charge of calculation of GDP, and they will suggest the government this should be considered as a base year. So on their suggestion, the government declared this is the base year, and therefore the GDP is calculated both at current prices as well as base year prices. Clear? Yeah. XI is the product, any product. I मैंने लिख दिया कि there are n number of products. तो उनको सम करना पड़ेगा ना आपको. Every product to be multiplied by their corresponding prices. Corresponding price level. P is the price level. जैसे कार, ऑटोमोबाइल कार, आपने number of cars calculate कर ली कितनी produce हुई, multiplied by the current year prices. Similarly, now you are producing the air conditioners. You are finding out the tables and chairs. Whatever is produced in the year, that has to be first found in the production form, in the real form, and to convert it into real money value, you have to use some prices. And in the current year, the current prevailing price is used. But it will have the price impact. maybe number of cars produced has not increased. Last year 5,000 थी, इस साल 5,000 है. But the value of car has increased because the price of car has increased. Price of car has increased. So that will have a price effect. This price effect has to be removed. And the method of removing the price effect is to calculate the GDP at base year prices. Base year prices. And which base year is to be selected? As I said, this is in all over the world, is selected by the specialized agencies. हाँ, वही तो बोल रहा हूँ. That is called price effect. अगर price बढ़ गया, number of goods produced has not increased, but the value has increased because of increase in prices. That increase in price has to be removed. उसका एक ही तरीका है, you calculate the GDP at the base year prices. Base year prices. वो तो बेटा काउंट हो ही जाएगा ऑटोमेटिकली. कोई भी प्रोडक्ट जो मार्केट में आया वो टैक्सेबल है. मैं आपको भी बताऊंगा, अभी चल रहे हैं हम उस साइड पे. एनी प्रोडक्ट विच इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द फैक्ट्री गेट तक कोई टैक्स नहीं है. फैक्ट्री गेट में जब तक कार फैक्ट्री के अंदर है कोई टैक्स नहीं है. मोमेंट इट कम्स आउट ऑफ द गेट, एक्साइज ड्यूटी इज इम्पोज्ड. एक्साइज ड्यूटी इज इम्पोज्ड. यही डिफरेंस है बेसिक प्राइस और मार्केट प्राइस. अभी हम आ रहे हैं इसके ऊपर. बट फर्स्ट यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस. नॉमिनल जीडीपी, रियल जीडीपी इज clear to you, and the ratio of current prices and base year prices is called deflator. We deflate the GDP by the deflator. कम हो जाएगी ना GDP अगर आप base year prices use करेंगे, and we are having the inflationary situation, the real GDP will be less than the nominal GDP, and the factor by which the real GDP is less than the nominal GDP is called the deflator. That is the nominal GDP divided by real GDP will give you deflator. हो गया? ओह अच्छा, 2 मिनट. That is called deflator. Sometimes somebody is asking you, what is deflator? Deflator is given by you ratio of nominal GDP by real GDP, or you can find out the ratio of current prices and base year prices. You can call it a deflator. Means you are deflating the GDP to remove the price effect. Clear? हाँ जी, रियल जीडीपी बेस वाला है. ये रियल है, ये रियल जीडीपी है, और ये नॉमिनल है. हाँ जी, डिफ्लेटर है. दिस इज द quantum by which the real GDP is less than the nominal GDP. Ratio of nominal GDP and the real GDP. Suppose real GDP is 100, nominal GDP is 100, and real GDP is 70. So over 70, this turns out to be how much is the deflator? Will be the deflator. It means you have reduced the nominal GDP by 33% because of the only using the base year prices. So you have deflated the current year GDP by using the base year prices. By how much the nominal GDP will be reduced using the base year prices is called deflator. Clear? So tomorrow we will finish this also, the GDP, and then I'll move to the specific chapters. Like I'll start with the poverty. It's a very, very important topic after this. हाँ जी बेटा. Here which have these fluctuations, yes, this is what I am saying. The specialized agency will select the year which is normal year, Only normal year will be selected as a base year. Only normal year will be selected as a base year.
सर
हाँ जी, हाँ बोलो.
सर पूछना था कि आपने बोला कि मनरेगा जो है वो ओपन एंडेड,
हाँ जी,
तो सिर्फ जो इसकी एम्प्लॉयमेंट पॉवर्टी एलिमिनेशन ओपन एंडेड होती है, जो विश्वकर्मा स्कीम है उसमें काफी ज्यादा.
मेरा फोन बज रहा है क्या? एक मिनट बेटा, एक मिनट. हाँ बोलो. जो मनरेगा ओपन एंडेड है, क्या क्वेश्चन है आपका? हेलो. हाँ
सर मैं पूछ रही थी, आपने बोला कि मनरेगा जो है वो ओपन
हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
है, वो ओनली बजट में एलोकेटेड ओनली ओपन एंडेड रहती. मैं पूछ रही थी कि पीएम विश्वकर्मा जो काफी ज्यादा फंड अभी एलोकेट आएगी या फिर पॉवर्टी एलिमिनेशन
नहीं, ओपन एंडेड में नहीं आएगी वो, क्योंकि वो कंपल्सन नहीं है गवर्नमेंट को इम्प्लीमेंट करने का. वो दैट विल बी लिमिटेड बाय द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ द बजट, बिकॉज मनरेगा इज ए स्पेशल स्कीम, बिकॉज दिस इज created by the act. Any scheme which is created by the act of the parliament may be under the open-ended scheme. May be under the open-ended scheme. But there are the hundreds of poverty alleviation programs implemented by the government. All are not the open-ended. All are limited by the availability of the budget. Government will not exceed the budget. But this is the program where there is no ceiling on the budget. There is no ceiling on the budget. The government has to meet the demand raised by the states. They have to meet the demand raised by the states. So therefore, that's why this is open-ended. Government cannot take the plea, we don't have the adequate money or under the scheme. They can't say this. In other schemes, they can say, because they are guided or constrained by the availability of the budget. Clear?
Yes, sir.
जी, गुड. और कोई क्वेश्चन? आप पढ़िए, कल पूछ लें.